And then what he does is he talks about, he says, and these propensities were not lost on the great Enlightenment philosopher Immanuel Kant, who famously said, and then we get this quote from this Kantian quote, which is famous, by the way. Two things fill the mind with ever new and increasing admiration and awe. The more often and enduring reflection is occupied with them. Kant goes on to say, the starry heavens above me and the moral law within me. Right? So that's.
Well, that doesn't sound like naturalism.
Yeah, I know. Kant has inspired more than his share of skepticism about God's existence, whether he intended to or not. Stokes tells us. So he says that Kant's overall philosophical project was a monumental attempt to reconcile the new scientific picture with the traditional one that we're morally responsible beings. That is, to reconcile the laws of nature with the laws of morality. So he suggests that part of the Enlightenment project that Kant was working on with this reconciliation project with regard to the laws of nature and the laws of morality.
Yeah, because during the Enlightenment, you did see both a rise in Christian education, as far as people wanting to go back to the sources and Fontes and find better translations of the Greek Bible, but you also had an increase in atheism, which is almost unheard of throughout the world at that time. Right. Somebody, it seemed, believed in a god or gods or capital G God at some point in time. The Enlightenment allowed people to kind of check that and say, do we need that?
Yeah, so and he makes this point here. He says folks felt they called it was a sense of freedom is what he called it, right? Which was at a premium during the Enlightenment. He says we might even summarize the Enlightenment the way a philosopher called Popper, so he's a famous philosopher of science, did as liberation, that is self-emancipation through knowledge. But what exactly were the shackles? How were we, what were we liberated from? Well, in a word, religion, right? Not that all Enlightenment thinkers were atheists. Many were deists. Of course, many were still Christians. But a sizable portion of them saw organized religion as oppressive and overbearing and intellectual dictatorship. And so they sought the freedom to think for themselves. They were called free thinkers, among other things, and so that was part of what was going on in Enlightenment. Yeah. Throw off the shackles of religion, we can use, for Kant anyway, reason and others, free thinking in order to come up with, ideas to be liberated, to be emancipated from the old religious thinking, right? The outdated, medieval, dark ages.
God subscribes to morality and tells you the oughts, what you ought to do. Yeah. But I think that's why you see a big push, especially in kind of the hard sciences, for kind of the social Darwinism to come about. Why should you and I not kill each other right now? Well, if we look at the Darwinian aspect for survival,
because you're bigger than I am, and I don't want.
That we shouldn't engage in warfare because it mutually benefits us to come together and pool our resources together, at least not kill each other for resources.
Yeah. So the idea of reciprocation is the basic
and so
idea,
that's supposed to be. And I've never heard anyone articulate this, and it's probably my fault more than anything. I don't see where that's ingrained. What gene or what DNA strand can I point to and say, yes, that's the no killing my neighbor. Mm-hmm. Oh, but except when I do kill my neighbor, what is that a different gene? Yeah. And so social Darwinism seems to be this big push, and a lot of people are saying, like, why are we afraid of snakes? Because it helps us to survive. And so when we are afraid of the dark and we like horror movies, it's because we hearken back to those days when that was beneficial to get us to survive. Well, where is that? I don't know where that's at.
So and actually the new name of the social Darwinism is social biology, or it's relatively new. It's starting to be passé. Yeah. Social biology was kind of replaced the idea of survival of the fittest for reciprocal relationships that allow for survival. That's kind of the new thinking with regard to social biology. But in either way, that type of thinking gets God out of the picture and attempts to at least explain morality,
right.
if not giving us a basis for it, at least explain it with regard to the.
It might not give you a full
process.
Why should we do this, or why ought we do this?
Right.
But at least it seems to try and trap it within a physical, naturalistic viewpoint, so that you can say scientifically. And there's your buzzword where we can say, well, in Romans it says, and that to us is a meme signal, to use a Dawkins phrase, to say this is where we draw our source of truth from. They say scientifically we know this, and so they can kind of punch that up.
Good. So we have this issue of liberation, freedom, and so he says these enlightened groups. He says emphasis. These groups, rather, he says, continue the Enlightenment emphasis. These groups, he means folks like Richard Rorty and Lawrence Krauss, and Dawkins and Dennett and so forth, on reason and freedom. He says it's no coincidence then that the late Christopher Hitchens and his searing attack on religion, God is not great with the chapter in conclusion, the need for a new enlightenment, right? He says the idea seems to be that we should be wary of others, of what others tell us, particularly those others who are religious, right?
Got to watch out for them.
Be skeptical of authority and think for ourselves.
Which, Dawkins says that, it's worse than child abuse, and that you should look at people with disgust who tell you that they believe in God, because they are backwards people.
Yeah.
However, within even his own book, he makes the point that religion is there for survival purposes. So it seems like, wouldn't you?
You can't have it both ways.
Yeah,
I think. Right?
It's almost like he's acting contradictory to what his truth claims are.